My first memory of Transformers was way back in the day, 1985. I was a pretty early adopter of Transformers, and distinctly I remember my family couldn't afford a VCR. I don't think VCRs were even very prominent at the time. So I had an audio cassette recorder, and I would actually record the episode as it was playing on TV so I could listen to it again. And so even to this day, the first season of the cartoon, maybe the visuals I don't have a distinct memory of, but I can hear like one or two words, and I could tell you like 5 or 6 lines because I just played those tapes over and over when I was a kid. So those voices in particular are just seared into my brain. Those voice actors are just so iconic to me. When they said that Peter Cullen was doing Optimus Prime in the movies and in the subsequent cartoons, it's like, yes, that's my Optimus Prime. And even the same thing with Peter Welker and Megatron. It's like, oh yes, these are my voices. And it was like it's even like characters like Scatman Carruthers. I mean, passed too soon, but that jazz is just so memorable to me, and it just I love the nuances and tweaks of how they brought their forms, and even when you can tell it's the same actor who's done like the 15th character in the episode, and they're trying to make it different, But I mean, it had Casey Kasem in it. I mean, it was such a wonderful lineup. And my life as a whole, Transformers has had a massive impact. I am someone who gets into something, gets really into it for a period of time, and then sometimes I'll step away from it for a while. Transformers has been with me pretty much my entire life. I remember when Beast Wars came out and just how, at the time, the computer animation was so amazing for the 90s, and the character-driven moments of that. I mean, I've had my moments in and out of the fandom, but I have tattoos of the Transformers characters. I have dug up the Japanese and British comic book versions of the Transformers, because the stories that they tell still resonate, I think. Yes, it's about alien shape-shifting robots, but at the heart, it's about characters and doing what they think is right. Like the Transformers cartoon was the first cartoon that I saw where it's like a bad guy can actually have opinions for the good guys. Seeing someone like Jetfire change from the Decepticons to the Autobots, and just realizing that, people can change. That meant a lot to me at a young age, and it really helped form a lot of where I went as a person. So it's silly in some ways, but I mean, it's really true that having something that gives relatively solid role models at a young age can really impact you going forward, and Transformers was one of those for me. How I got involved with the Transformers project is I've been working in the tabletop RPG industry for 20 years now. I've worked on a lot. I got to work on Vampire the Masquerade. I've gotten to work on the Red Dwarf role-playing game. I've gotten to work on the World Wrestling Entertainment role-playing game. There's a lot of things I've been able to check off my personal bucket list. But one of those was the Transformers, because I've never been a Transformers tabletop role-playing game. And luckily, I've had the privilege to work with some amazing people in this industry over the past 2 decades. And one of them found out that they were looking for, that Renegade was looking for writers for them, and kind of slid my name in. It was like, hey, just FYI, you might be interested in this. Someone's going to contact you soon. I can't tell you why, but you want to clear your schedule a little bit. And I'm like, okay, sure. I'm up for more work. I'm a freelancer. I like that. And then when I found out I was Transformers, I was like, oh, thank you. Thank you so much. It was definitely a case of making my interests very, very clear, and also just working with people who were willing to pay it forward. And so I've been blessed to have a lot of colleagues, great colleagues, and the people at Renegade continue that tradition of having just a fantastic team of fun, smart, very diligent people. I've always been someone who wanted to include more diversity and inclusion in the tabletop industry. I'm someone with hearing loss myself, so obviously disability inclusion is very important to me. But also I have lots of friends of color. I have lots of friends in the LGBTQ community. The game about alien space robots might be an unusual place to think about that. One thing that I still think Transformers does really well is that they're still people. These are, yes, they're Cybertronians, but they're characters. And even concepts like gender, why do all of these robots use he as a pronoun? And being able to dig into those topics and talk about them and really address them. When you can rebuild your body to look in any way, shape, or form, that's a strong way to talk about things like transgender dysmorphism. It's like, my body's not built the right way. You can have that literal conversation with Transformers. So it allows you to have conversations at a slight remove from the real world. So you can maybe dig into those ways in topics that people may not necessarily want to do in something a little more literal, like say a G.I. Joe or even a Power Rangers to a degree. So it gives you a bit of space to have some of those conversations if you want them. And I think the Transformers property is so rich and so detailed that there's a lot of potential to really explore a wide variety of ranges and still be inclusive, respectful of real world cultures and identities. There were a couple things that surprised me during the development process of the game. One was the fact that we did have to kind of think about the real world to a degree. We decided early on that we would accept this in modern day Earth. So kind of a slight reframing of the classic setup of the Autobots Decepticons come to Earth looking for fuel or the Allspark or what have you. And so we had to think about updating certain things to, well, what happens now? Like having robots in the skies in 1984 is different from having robots in the skies in a world where everyone has a cell phone and could videotape you and put you on YouTube. But the other thing is I spent a lot of my time focused on the fiction of it, kind of getting the ideas across the lore. As someone who, again, I've loved Transformers, so I had a lot of thoughts. And as I was writing, one thing that came out, which was really interesting to me, that kind of surprised me, was a bit of weariness, because this is a war that's been going on for 4 million years. And being able to kind of look at these characters a little bit, and it's like, it's got to be emotionally exhausting to have this conflict go on for so long. So I definitely want to make sure it was still fun to punch Starscream in the face and get away with it, because that is inherently fun, but also separately of the, give room to say, why are we having this conflict? Why is this war going on? Do Decepticons maybe have valid points that we could take on board? So I wanted to put in a little bit of depth, and the whole team was really on board with this idea. Like, yes, let's make sure there's still room for the classic red versus purple conflict, but if there's room for additional layers and depth that people can dive into if they want to, little touches here and there, that was really surprising, and how much the team was really committed to making sure that the classic game was still there, but we made sure we kept enough room for deeper, more interesting exploration if people wanted it. If anyone wanted to write for their favorite property, I think the one piece of advice I would give is critically examine why you love it. Because I've worked on a lot of licensed games, and it's going to be really hard to say, I've always wanted to answer this question that's bugged me for decades, but it's not really fun and interesting at the table, so we don't need to address that question. And sometimes you have to adjust and tweak things a little bit here and there to make the game more interesting and fun. This, at the end of the day, was not my Transformers. It was the team's Transformers. It was Renegade's Transformers. It was Hasbro's Transformers. And then at the end of the day, it's the Transformers at your table. It's your Transformers at the end. And we need to make sure that we gave you all the tools to make it your Transformers, not what I think needs to be in it. So the big advice I would give is always think about what the fans at the other end of the product are going to use it for, not what you feel like needs to be in it.